Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to today's webinar, in which we will take a look at device essentials for achieving digital equity. My name is Scott Henley, and I'm the Executive Director of Digitunity. And it's a pleasure to be here with you today. This session is presented today with support from my colleagues Carissa Tashjian, Nirvan West, and Lindsay Willett. We are going to have both chat and Q&A available during the session, so feel free to drop comments in there, interact with others in the chat, and put questions you'd like to have answered during the webinar in the Q&A. All right, and we'll do our best to answer questions both in real time, and we'll save some for the end as well. And if you'd like to share with colleagues or refer back to key content, we'll be sending out a recording of the webinar via email afterward as well. So I also want to take a moment just to acknowledge the fact that really what you'll see and learn today is not rocket science. It's actually pretty obvious that there are a lot of considerations that lead to the successful adoption and use of a computer. But we hope that by putting this together and sharing our new device essentials graphic widely, that it shines a light on all these things so that they're not overlooked in our collective work to advance digital equity. So I welcome you all, and I hope you'll find this session helpful. So let's get right to it. The purpose of today's webinar is to illustrate the many factors and considerations that lead to device adoption and ongoing use. So here are some of the learnings that I hope you'll take away from today's session. Number one, most importantly, it's about more than just the computer, and there's more to it than you might actually think. We hope that you'll come away with an expanded view of equity as it relates to devices. We'd also like you to understand the key hardware and software essentials that enable the productive use of a computer. And we hope that you'll leave with knowledge of the conditions and supports that lead to meaningful and sustainable device adoption. So let's start with a poll, get you interacting right away. This is a good one. Who are you? And you know, what sectors do you represent here on today's webinar? Who's with us today? So go ahead, take a look at the poll, select the sector that best describes your work or that you most readily identify with. So government, coalitions, researchers, practitioners. Are you from a school? Are you from philanthropy or the corporate sector? So we'll give it just another minute to see who is with us today. Okay, let's see the results. There we go. Local, regional, state government is the most represented today. And boy, there are a ton of folks that are deeply involved in digital equity planning, local coalitions doing good work at the ground level, at state level as well. And so I will say Director of Programs, Carissa Tashjian here at Digitunity, she's going to pop in from time to time throughout this session, and now is one of those times. So Carissa, any surprises there?
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking at the government participation here, and surprised and heartened that government is so interested in this work, but also recognize you've got a lot of work on your plates right now with your planning in your state. So hopefully the tools and ideas we put forth today will be of help to that. But really nice to see a rounding out of all the diverse sectors that it'll take to achieve what we're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. Many different seats at the table to be filled for sure. So good. Okay, well, thank you for that. And we can go ahead and pull the poll results down and move on to the next slide, which is who is Digitunity? So for starters, about us, so Digitunity is a national nonprofit organization focused on advancing digital equity with a particular emphasis on device ownership. Owning a computer is the foundation of digital equity. It's the thing that unlocks all that the internet can offer. And so just think about the role computers play in your own life. I mean, computers are enabling this here right now. They're absolutely essential for people to thrive in the modern economy. And yet 36 million people in America don't have a computer at home. So that's our area of focus. We've been in this space for almost 40 years, previously known as the National Christina Foundation. And our work over all these years has been to source donated technology from individuals and corporations, and then work with and through a national network of practitioners to get that technology distributed in communities. Digitunity was created as a spin-off entity 2 years ago to attack this issue at scale, and that's what we're doing today. We are working on supply chain interventions to unlock large quantities of devices to help local digital inclusion efforts. We're also working together with communities to help foster sustainable ecosystems. We support a national network of nonprofit computer refurbishers. We produce reports and publications to help inform the field, and we're active in advocacy as well. The Computers for Veterans and Students Act is a great example. Legislation that was just signed into law at the end of 22, so we're thrilled about that. And that will end up directing government surplus to nonprofit computer refurbishers to support people in communities nationwide. So let's start with some sort of foundational things so that we're all using the same language. Let's start by exploring some device terms and concepts. First, large screen devices. We're talking about laptops, desktops, Chromebooks, and tablets. Smartphones are helpful, of course, but not enough for full participation online. The upside is that they're often, more affordable than the upfront cost of a computer, yes, and they are indeed mobile devices, so they can help users connect to the web at libraries and coffee shops or other places. But despite these benefits, there's also evidence that mobile-only users have more limited computing experience and may reflect persistent digital inequalities. Relying on smartphones alone for internet access has also been shown to limit the range of one's online activity and generally limit one's overall digital skills. So bottom line, smartphones may be a valuable stopgap in getting people online, but they should not be the only way for users to access the internet, especially when it comes to work, school, or other critical life activities. We recently worked with researcher Amy Gonzalez of the University of California, Santa Barbara on a report addressing that very topic, and you can find that at digitunity.org in our resource hub. Okay, another term here, device ownership. So loaners and computer labs are, of course, helpful, but they prevent people from having full participation online and equity with their device-owning neighbors. Personal device ownership provides a unique computing experience that cannot be replicated through public use of computers or shared devices. Now, of course, access to the internet and word processing in any form is often valuable, but personal device ownership provides additional control over when and how people get online. Next, we look at non-deviced and under-deviced homes. As I mentioned earlier, an estimated 36 million people don't have a computer at home. On top of that, there's an unknown number of households where there just aren't enough computers available for concurrent use. If you think back to the height of the pandemic and how kids and families had to just figure out how to share limited devices. New versus refurbished. So digital equity requires that the right device is available where and when it is needed and tailored to the intended use. So that means that a range of solutions needs to be available for the wide array of constituents and intended uses in a community. Most importantly is device quality, new or refurbished. Regardless, we need to protect against the creation of a second-class digital citizen. We must ensure that affordable devices are reliable and they provide a range of services. We can't compromise quality for quantity. As I mentioned, Digitunity supports a national network of nonprofit computer refurbishers that can be found in over 100 locations around the country, and most offer a range of digital inclusion services. But whatever the source of refurbished devices, there's obviously an environmental benefit to technology reuse as well. So in the end, the reality is new and refurbished must be part of the solution. All right, now to define digital equity. So as defined by the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, digital equity is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in our society, our democracy, and our economy. Digital equity is necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. And lastly, the term adoption. Now, this is a term often used in reference to broadband. Colin Rhinesmith of the Digital Equity Research Center notes that broadband adoption has traditionally been defined as residential subscribership to high-speed internet access. But for those in the field working to increase the digital capacity of communities, broadband adoption is daily access to the internet at speeds, quality, and capacity necessary to accomplish common tasks with the digital skills necessary to participate online and on a personal device and secure, convenient network. So we can tailor that language to device adoption. And so true adoption, which was what we're striving for here, encompasses daily access to a device, ownership of a large screen device with quality and reliability that is adequate to meet the user's intended use and with support available. Okay, so let's move on to our second poll. Now that we've covered vocabulary, this time let's take a look at content of this webinar, but through your very, very personal lens. So think about your day yesterday. What did you do with a computer? So inside the poll, just take a look, and there's two different sections, one related to hardware and peripherals, the other related to software and other device essentials. So think about all the various things that came into play for you yesterday with your device. And we're going to give this a little bit of time so you guys have a chance to take a look at all the different options there. And so it's not multiple choice. You can select all the things that you interacted with or what influenced your day yesterday while you were on a device. I wish we had some background music here, which I will not provide through singing. But we'll give it just another couple seconds here.
Scott, what I'm already noticing is that repair, thankfully for this group, is not showing up there as something they needed yesterday. But as we know, having access to repair when you need it is an essential.
So let's go ahead and take a look at the results. Okay, so look at that. On the first section there, basically everybody interacted with everything on their computer yesterday to a certain degree. I mean, printers, we don't always use a printer any longer, but printers are certainly still an essential item. But what strikes you in the first section there about the poll results, Carissa?
Oh, yeah. Same as you in the sense of, how many things people use. I also hope that this moment of reflection is to kind of sit and think, wow, I really did use all those things in one day. And, when you're thinking about planning, are you considering these kind of what we call accessories to in your planning? Scott, I was also thinking of how different populations, need some of these tools more so much more critically than others for maybe audio or visual support.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about students' use of a computer as opposed to, a worker at home, like you and I, like, you know, I have the luxury of having external speakers and a camera here, but if I needed a more private setting, I actually don't have a headset handy right here, and so it's one of those, matching to the intended use, and um, it definitely shines a light on it. It's a multifaceted thing. Now on down to the bottom section there, where you're right, it doesn't appear that anyone needed to have their computer fixed yesterday, but that is a thing that's a really critical component when you're thinking about equity as related to devices. If a member of your community who might be a new adopter of technology, if their computer goes down, without having an option that's knowable or at least known and nearby, accessible, affordable, that might mean they're dead in the water with their machine. Do you have any other perspective on that, Carissa?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that has been solved. It can be solved in so many different ways with assets and communities for the repair. But the one last thing that was striking me as well is, becoming more familiar with refurbishers, is all of these things have a cost attached to them.
Yeah.
So it's, we kind of budget for the computer, and that's a great thing and a big win. But these other things, as we're saying, are essential to equity. They need to be budgeted and considered as well. Scott, I'm just going to say hi, David. Hi, David Rosen. Nice to see you. He's posed a question, but I think it's something we should hold till the end, if that's okay.
That sounds good. So one other thing to toss out there to the group here, what are some things that you use that you didn't see on the list? If there's something that is just a glaring omission, we'd love to hear it. So just drop it in the chat if something wasn't on the list for you. Okay, so let's move on. Thank you all for participating in that. Thank you, Carissa. And so on to the next slide here. So we've reached the point where here is the newly released device essentials for digital equity graphic from Digitunity, and it illustrates the many factors that must be considered to ensure adoption. This is available. We're going to dig into this in a moment, but this is available in our resource hub on our website at digitunity.org, or through the main nav at the top. Just click on our approach and you'll find that graphic in there as well. So let's take a look first at device essentials. So what are device essentials? We've identified 13 key baseline elements, and maybe there are more that are not yet identified. Maybe more will pop up in the chat, but we've identified 13 so far. So we're just going to run through them rapid fire here. And by the way, they may not be thought of as essential for everyone, but if you think about the fact that some of these things are essential for others, and so they should also be held against the equity test as well. If someone has access to something that makes using a computer more productive or easier, why shouldn't others have the same access? So, all right, rapid fire, here we go. First, a large screen, as we were talking about before. A phone is not enough. A large screen device is what we're aiming for. A charging cord. You might say, well, duh, of course, but working with the refurbishers across the country as we do, having a charging cord is kind of one of those absolute must-have things. And in fact, it's one of the things that don't often come with a device when it's given to a refurbisher to prepare. So it's often a cost center for refurbishers to source them. But it just shows just how fundamentally important it is. And then likewise, the thing that you charge with the charging cord, battery power needs to be reliable, and oftentimes it's the first thing that goes bad on devices. And so having reliable battery power is critical. Of course, an operating system, whether it's iOS or Windows or any of the Linux-based operating systems, without an operating system, the machine is not very helpful for the average person. Data storage. If you're a student and you have a Chromebook, that's probably enough without having much onboard data storage. But if you're an adult working or taking classes, or you need local storage, that's key. And so that's another factor. Now, this isn't talking about connectivity, it's talking about being Wi-Fi enabled. And so there are still, machines that are out there that aren't Wi-Fi enabled. And so you need to make sure that if you are refurbishing and distributing desktops, for instance, if they don't have the ability to connect to the internet, then that's obviously a major problem. Same with having those other peripherals like a keyboard or a mouse, or a working trackpad on a laptop. Oftentimes a keyboard and a mouse together with a laptop is a great solution. We talked about camera, kind of fundamental today, fundamental for school, of course, for work, for telehealth, being able to connect with your physician, and community, connecting with family members and so forth. And likewise, alongside that, a microphone, whether built in or a plug-in microphone or on a headset. Being two-way communication is important. And there we go. There's the audio component, speakers, or if you're looking for more privacy, headphones or earbuds. These are all factors that must be considered when you're thinking of how to solve the device access issue in your community. It goes far beyond the device. There's the printer. And today a lot's done digitally, but you know what? Some people just prefer to print and read, or you need to print something and sign it and scan it and send it in. Having a printer is still a key aspect of participating fully in the digital economy. Software, safe software, navigating, using the right stuff on your computer, having a good browser, having an updated browser, having Word or Office or other things that allow your computer to be useful for those everyday tasks. And there we are, talking about the repair source, knowing how to get your device fixed. We've heard stories from practitioners about how if someone in a community's computer goes down, sometimes it's like a barter thing, trying to find a buddy who knows how or can help you troubleshoot and working out a barter situation there. But just knowing that there are some kinds of solutions that are out there, so you're not dead in the water with the machine that's no longer helpful. And this is really fascinating. I never thought of this until I encountered in our network refurbishers that not only provide computers, but actually help their constituents with getting a desk to put their computers on. Space is an issue. People living in a small apartment or who get a desktop and they need to have a place for it, right? And so that's another factor to think about. So let's move on from that and take a look at the many factors and conditions and supports that make the use of a computer possible in some cases, or more effective. And so first, a reliable power source, the thing you plug your charging cord into. That is a real challenge for people who might be homeless or don't have a place where they can reliably plug in. That is a key factor, something to think about. A safe place to use a device is something that's important. A quiet location, a private location. Our local senior center here in my neck of the woods recently invested in creating little privacy suites for their constituents. They could connect to telehealth, and that's just an interesting adaptation and a way to provide a quiet location. But that is key. A place where students aren't distracted. Quiet and private is important. And there, of course, is the connectivity, making sure that you have ready and robust and reliable connection to the internet, and that your local machine has antivirus software, anti-malware software as well to make sure your own security is protected. You may need a VPN to securely connect to a workplace. Additional layers of cybersecurity might be important, firewall, and so forth. Passwords. It's such a fundamental part of our daily use of computers today to think about managing passwords, but that really is something that could be foreign to somebody. Having a strategy and being safe is important. Online content. I mean, we all know that the internet serves up a wide range of stuff, and knowing what's safe, knowing where not to go, knowing what to trust there's a learning curve there. So making sure that that constituents have an understanding of the landscape of the internet's important. And then accessibility and language tools, if English is not the first language, or if you need special assistance with vision or with audio, what have you, special populations require special adaptations. And so that's another factor. And then, of course, we get into just the skills, like just basic training, basic skills to know how to do the word processing, writing an email, knowing how to use a browser and things like that. Plus having access to ongoing training and education to sharpen those skills, to get better and faster and more fluent in the language of the internet and the use of a computer. And then lastly, when you just need some help, knowing how to access it online, or knowing what in your community can serve as a resource for you. And these are all factors that when you kind of zoom out and you think about like all the things that we've described, it is a rather complex thing to think about. It's not just a transactional hand a computer to somebody who's in need of one. There are many, many factors here. And so to summarize all of this, let's see what the device essentials and successful adoption can actually yield. And so here are 8 real-life examples conveyed in our device essentials graphic through avatars. And so here's a great example. Here's George. He's able to make medical appointments and access his records and connect with his physician through his computer. And here's Latoya. She's a student and she takes her classes online using her computer. We look at Akari here. She's a volunteer for many causes in her community. She's able to connect with others and participate using her computer. And Amin, who's an entrepreneur, he was able to start a business or manage a business or find employees using his computer. And Elena, who uses her computer to shop online, to do other, commercial things like banking and insurance and retail sales and all the other things that you can find online. And Juan, who's an artist, his computer unlocks his creativity. And that's such an important use of a computer, creative expression. And Jamal, who's a high school senior preparing for college, doing applications, setting up SATs, applying for scholarships, entrance exams. You think of all the different things that are unlocked by having a computer when you're at that particular age, or even entering the workforce. And Janet, who uses her computer for entertainment. And yes, leisure and entertainment is an important use of a computing device, and everyone should have that ability to do so. And so now let's just pause for a moment and take a look at the device essentials graphic and maybe just kind of work on or just kind of walk through some of the uses, the purpose for using it. And so I'm going to ask Carissa to come back in and, in putting this graphic together with large screen devices there at its core, what are we trying to convey? What's the purpose of producing such a thing, Carissa?
Yeah, I mean, at the core, I hope it's just kind of elevating and making clear and intentional what is needed for a round of computers. So when you're making, like I said, the budget or planning for these, you're planning for these intentionally from the offset. Also think about your community and finding out what assets you already have around these issues. There's some questions that we can come up with that folks are asking Scott on chat later about what folks have in their community for around repair services and what things are looking like. So there might be already things there in your community that you can kind of weave the rest of the supports and essentials into. So that's what strikes me is, we have maybe some common language as you began talking about, and just really elevating and really having shared understanding of this.
You raising the topic of a local computer shop, of a repair shop, definitely reminds me that, we believe fully that sustainable solutions are the long way, are the way forward, right? So not just buying computers, that's a stopgap, that's a moment in time, but in order to solve this for communities, with communities on into the future, sustainable solutions are really the way forward. And it's all the resources are out there, like computer repair shops, like refurbishers and resellers, and retail stores, and community volunteers, and the corporate sector with all the devices, the philanthropic sector with the money. Like, all the pieces are out there. So this particular moment in time, I think it's really interesting. It's really important that we think about how we in our communities can bring all those pieces together so that there is a long-term solution.
Scott, I'm going to jump in here to say we do have a question that talks about the cost of computers, even the refurbished computers. Tobias is saying the cost of refurbished computers is just too much. And what are some of the ways we could overcome these high prices? Do you have thoughts on that?
That's interesting. I mean, there are, it depends on the community, but there are programs in place where the cost of computers are subsidized by various programs. There are, I mean, just thinking about the practitioners in our network, they do have guidelines in which they qualify their constituents, that some may qualify for free devices. And of course, there's ACP and subsidized internet, but also there's a device component of ACP that I'm sure you're aware of. The unfortunate thing is there's not a ton of ISPs that are participating, and we're definitely trying to make our voice heard on that. But signing up for an affordable internet plan and also getting the most of the cost of a device subsidized through that program could be another way to do that.
Yeah, and of course, we feel strongly that you mentioned, Tobias, specifically about refurbished computers. Well, the more that we can get organizations and corporations to donate their used technology and get it into this ecosystem, into this process, the cost should be going down because there's more supply. But supply has been limited through the pandemic, as refurbishers will certainly say. And we recently had a win with a new law, computers for veterans and students law now, I could say, not just act. And that will hopefully in the next year bring some more federal surplus computers into the system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Thank you, Carissa. So this is now kind of reviewing what we just talked about, but the purpose of putting this together, our goal in creating this graphic, was to make the known more visible and to develop shared understanding of the term device essentials. Also, aligning behind common language that's already out there is important, like NDIA's work in developing widely understood definitions. I mean, I'll speak for us, like it's been so helpful for all of us in the field so that we're speaking the same language, and developing tools like this graphic is in that same spirit. So as we head through the last few slides here, as you use this graphic and you employ this terminology, these are just rhetorical questions, but here's some things to think about. Like in digital equity planning, how are you taking these things into consideration? it is bigger than just a computer. So how can you leverage the assets in your community to handle all these things? What do you have available already? How do you surface the needs of your residents? And what additional resources or partnerships might be needed in order to achieve all these things? And so just a couple more things here. Digitunity has made some specific recommendations for digital equity planners about things that should be woven into digital equity plans as they're being put together right now. So we'd love for you to consider those. Those can be found in the Engage Us section of our website, or just ping one of us after this webinar. I'd be happy to share them with you. And then also we've put together, just like with the device essentials graphic, we put together a graphic that illustrates our methodology for a sustainable device ecosystem. And basically what it does is it looks at all the different components and activities and things that must be in place for a sustainable ecosystem to exist. And like I said, all the assets are out there. It just takes coordination. And so what that tries to do is illustrate all the different components there. That's all in our on our website as well, both in the resource hub and under the Our Approach section of the website as well. Also, I should say that our previous webinar that we recently did covers that exact thing, and you can find that on our YouTube channel if you want to navigate over there. I do also want to say before we head to Q&A is just to say, we're here to help. Digitunity is truly unique in the landscape where a national scale entity is focused on this issue, on device ownership. We have highly pertinent expertise. We're uniquely suited to help you with developing a sustainable device solution for your state, your region, or your community. And like I mentioned in the last slide, use us as an information source. Head to the website. You'll find a ton of helpful stuff like publications, research, reports, recommendations. All of that's in the resource hub at digitunity.org. We can also be engaged in an advisory capacity. If you're not aware of that, we can be engaged so that we use our national perspective and learnings that we've accumulated to help support you in your local work. We're doing that in 11 different cities right now, and we enjoy having an exploratory call with you to see how we can support your work as well. And then lastly, we can work right at your side as an implementation partner with dedicated staff, rolling up our sleeves, doing the work right there with you. And so the bottom line for all of us here on our team is that we want to see device ownership meaningfully addressed, community by community, all across the country. And I think we're all on the same page here that there's never been a better time to do that than right now. And so we invite you to use the device essentials graphic in your work, share it with your coworkers, spread it across your coalition. And before we hit Q&A, which is coming up right after this, just think about, use the graphic as a discussion starter. And also as we head towards the end here, what did we miss? What would you add to it? What's your feedback? What surprised you? Drop your comments into chat. We'd love to get feedback because all of these things that we're producing, it's iteration one, right? And so we want to make them, all the resources we produce, more helpful, more effective, and conveying the right stuff that you can employ in your work. So we welcome your thoughts and feedback. Please go ahead and drop them in chat. And then lastly, we do have another webinar coming up soon. Date hasn't been set, but we're going to take a deep look at the anatomy of an ecosystem, a behind the scenes look at the wide range of actors and activities that are occurring within ecosystems, and especially as applied to the concept of a sustainable device ecosystem. So we'll be sharing those dates soon. And with that, I will ask Carissa to come back in, and I welcome your questions. We'll do our best to answer them. I want to thank you for your attention and your participating in this today. And so, Carissa, what do we have? And I'll
Yeah,
take I'll take the easy questions.
yeah, sure. I'm passing them on because there's some really thought-provoking questions. And I'd say they're, kind of around two areas. One, and I know David Rosen's been doing some work on this topic, is the exploration of knowing what folks are out there thinking about and doing around planning for the maintenance of devices that they may be giving out in their communities. Now, I know you alluded to the fact of that there's repair shops across the country, small repair shops that could be perhaps tapped for that. But what have you been hearing of other things?
In our work, and probably all of you in your work, if you're involved with coalitions, if you're driving this in your community, you know that there are so many different stakeholders coming from all kinds of different corners of the community, which opens up a whole world of opportunities for distribution of devices, for skills development, for digital skills training, and for support and repair and so forth. I think every community is gonna need to assess what is already there and what could be employed, what could be brought into a community-wide solution. There are programs, well, just looking at our refurbisher network, and most of the refurbishers, I would say all of the refurbishers in our network offer a warranty. And so if there is an issue with a device, they'll stand behind it. But then there's also community groups through, training programs and so forth to help people with the skills to do their own repair and so forth. Specific examples I don't have at the tip of my tongue right now, but maybe, I don't know if you do, Carissa, but
Yeah, I'm thinking of widening. Again, it's this multi-sector, diverse ecosystem at work within those questions, because we've been seeing large company that works with computers have a real dedication to their community and want to set up a system with their employees to help provide technical support. That's in the exploratory phase, but there's that interest out there. And Scott, like you said, there are some great nonprofit refurbishers out there that have infused it as a workforce development program of building technical skills alongside. So, there's many different ways about it. I quite honestly am pleased to hear interest and attention to the repair and maintenance of computers as a part of the conversation. Scott, segueing in, there's a number of questions here that are somewhat close to what you were talking about, the refurbishers providing warranties. There's questions about, are there, do we vet or is there an evaluation of refurbishers available, some type of tool like that? And what are the standards, or if any, that they have to abide by?
Oh, wow, interesting. All right, so take those in order. Do we vet the refurbishers in our network? We vet the organizations in our broad network of 1,500 practitioners to ensure that they are indeed in good standing with the IRS as nonprofit organizations. We do check the validity of their work and making sure that their mission aligns with, closing the digital divide. That's as far as we go specifically in the vetting of the capacity or the effectiveness of organizations in our network. I will say that the refurbisher network, the Alliance for Technology Refurbishing and Reuse, that's a subset of our network. There's about 100 of them, maybe a little bit less than 100, but over 100 locations. They do kind of hold their own membership to their own standard, that they are working to close the digital divide, that they are refurbishing devices and getting them out into their communities. And they do need to have security protocols in place. Not all of them have the highest level of, Department of Defense and R2 and E-Steward certifications, but many do. And so what we do in our work of matching corporate and individual donors of tech to the right refurbishers, we make sure we match the donors based on their needs, their criteria, to the right refurbishers. And so there isn't an issue with security or data breaches or anything like that. And so, but there isn't a uniform standard out there, I guess, is the question. There are standards, there are certifications that you can get. But every refurbisher on their own practices their own data security measures. And so if you are looking to dig in a little bit and learn more, then I would encourage you just to take a look at each of their websites, because that's kind of core to what they do. They live and die on the supply, right? And that's the biggest thing. And so they need to make sure they're meeting the needs of their donors when it comes to security.
Great. We have a question. Could Digitunity develop a page on our website devoted to computer maintenance tips and other computer maintenance resources? And we always love suggestions like that. And I know Nirvan behind the scenes here is probably lighting up with that question, our program officer for technical engagement. He did create an unbelievable a quality resource called Demystifying Your Device, which is available on our resource hub on our website. And so Scott, is anything else jumping out at you specifically about maintenance, or we can add that to our list?
No, I can't wait to raise that issue with the refurbishers on our network. Talk about geeking out, putting their heads together, to have the right content for that webpage. That'd be great.
Good. A question just came in here from Nathan saying users need a dedicated email account, and that comes with has to come through a provider, the ISP, but then they're bound to the ISP in order to maintain that account. So it's just an observation, I think, that he's making there. Yeah. Do you have any comment on that?
Only that while that may be the case, that any user's free to create email addresses, email accounts on any other platform too, that might be free. But yeah, that goes a little bit into a realm that I'm not super familiar with.
Yes. Well, I think that's most of our questions. Gabriella, we'll reach out to you. She had a question about being able to share and put the graphic on her website, so we can provide some guidance on that. Thank you for even asking the question.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us. We love doing this. We'll be doing another webinar here soon. If you'd like to reach out to us, please do. I'm at scott@digitunity.org, Carissa@digitunity.org as well. Thanks to the crew here, Carissa, Nirvan, Lindsay, and Sue. And I wish you all nothing but success. Thanks for all you do. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.